Namaskar. In today's session, I shall discuss about mixed method research. To begin with, mixed method research is a type of study where quantitative and qualitative methods are used together at the data collection, at data analysis, and at data interpretation to provide a broader and deeper understanding of the research problem. Now, it combines numbers with the words. This methodology leverages the strength of both the paradigms, addressing the limitations of a single method study. It's specifically used in educational research, in social science, and health research. Well, key principles of mixed method research includes its triangulation for validation and credibility, its complementarity for its depth, and methodological development where one method informs the other. Now, mixed method research emerged as a long-standing paradigm war between the quantitative and qualitative researchers during the 20th century. Quantitative research argued that qualitative research lacked objectivity, while qualitative critics argued that quantitative research ignored context and meaning. So then mixed method research emerged as a third methodological movement integrating both the principles, and it gained its prominence in the late 1990s and early 2000s, majorly through the work of John Creswell and Abbas Tasakori. Well, the key characteristics of mixed method research exhibit distinct features. It employs multiple methods of data collection. The core feature is the integration of quantitative and qualitative data and not merely their parallel use. Another aspect is the integration of the quantitative and qualitative data at one or more stages, such as at the design, at methods, interpretation, or reporting. Now, there are different types of mixed method research design. One, it is convergent parallel design. Then we have explanatory sequential design, then exploratory sequential design, and embedded design. To begin with, let's start with convergent parallel design. Now, the convergent parallel design is also called concurrent triangulation design. Let me make you understand why. This design is a core mixed method design in which quantitative and qualitative data are collected simultaneously, analyzed independently, and converged to compare, relate, and triangulate the findings. Now, the goal is to obtain a comprehensive understanding of a research problem while giving the equal priority to both the methods. Now, the integration in convergent design can be of two ways. By presenting the findings of qualitative study into the quantitative study or vice versa, or by transforming the qualitative data into counts and then integrating this transformed data into quantitative results. Let me share an example. Let's say if a researcher is examining experiences of using AI technologies in education, the researcher would administer a survey and also conducts interviews with teachers and students to understand the issue. It will collect the quantitative data from the survey and qualitative data from the interviews. In the analysis phase, a researcher can always look for the common concepts across both the set of findings. Now, it will examine if the findings obtained from two different data sets converge or diverge. In case the result diverge, the researcher explains the findings by re-examining the results or collecting more data or explaining the quality of the data set. Now, convergent parallel design is a very balanced interpretation and by integrating quantitative results and qualitative insights. This mixed method research design is used when both quantitative and qualitative data are required to understand a research problem, giving equal priority to both types of perspectives. It is actually suitable when the researcher has a limited time and needs to collect both types of data simultaneously. It actually enables validation of the results by comparing and corroborating the findings from different sources of data, that is, triangulation. And by cross-checking the results, this design enhances the validity and the credibility of the study. And it is particularly useful for investigating complex educational, social, or health-related issues. Next, moving on, the second type is the explanatory sequential design. Now, explanatory sequential design is a mixed method research design in which quantitative data are collected and analyzed first, followed by qualitative data to explain, interpret, and elaborate on the quantitative findings. The emphasis is primarily on the quantitative part, while the qualitative part plays a supporting role. Now, this mixed method design consists of two distinct sequential phases. Phase 1, quantitative data are collected and analyzed to identify patterns, trends, and relationships. Then comes Phase 2, where qualitative data are collected and analyzed to provide deeper insights into quantitative results. A clear connection is there between these two phases. Priority, of course, is given to the quantitative part. At the same time, qualitative strand is developed based on the quantitative results. It could be participant selection or interview questions or the focal area of the qualitative inquiry. Finally, the integration occurs at the interpretation stage, where qualitative findings explain the statistical trends, clear some unexpected results, and overall enhance the understanding of the research problem. Let me share an example of the explanatory sequential design. Let's say a researcher is investigating the effect of digital technologies on students' academic performance in higher education. This study uses explanatory sequential mixed method design. In the phase 1, qualitative data are collected through secondary data, which could be academic test scores, then primary data, which could be structured questionnaire based on study habits, attendance, or maybe motivation. With this, the data are statistically analyzed to identify significant trends and relationships. Then comes phase 2. The qualitative data are collected through semi-structured interviews of the selected students based upon the quantitative results. For example, high-performing or low-performing students. Finally, the qualitative findings are integrated with the quantitative results during the integration to explain why certain variables are affecting the academic test scores. For example, for here, let's say we have a quantitative finding which says there's an improved academic test scores. So the qualitative explanation could be that students use recorded sessions for revision. Another quantitative finding could be that there is a moderate satisfaction level. So the qualitative explanation could be that satisfaction depends upon the access to the internet. So as you can see, explanatory sequential design is a very clear and logical structure. It is a very step-by-step procedure that's easy to plan, design, and implement. The qualitative findings provides strong explanatory power to help explain the understanding of the quantitative results. It's actually very much valuable for policy formulation. As you can understand, it is very sequential, so it's of course very time consuming in nature. And the effective interpretation depends upon careful and systematic integration of quantitative and qualitative results. And the dependency of the quantitative phase is what makes at times qualitative phase little reducing in the flexibility if the quantitative findings are weak or unclear. Moving on, third comes the exploratory sequential design. The exploratory sequential design is a mixed method approach in which qualitative data are collected and analyzed first, followed by quantitative data to test, generalize, and validate on the initial qualitative findings. This design gives the priority to the qualitative phase and making it especially useful when the concepts, variables, or instruments are not clearly defined. This is actually a three-phase study where the researcher works from the constructivist principle. Phase 1, a researcher explores an issue in depth. The qualitative data are gathered and analyzed. Then comes phase 2. They shift to post-positivist principle to identify and measure variables and statistical trends. In this phase, building on the qualitative findings, qualitative measures and instruments are developed. Comes the phase 3, where a researcher quantitatively tests the variable that they have identified and interprets it and extends it to the qualitative findings. An example to this: let's say there is a study on teachers' readiness on integrating AI technologies in the classroom teaching. So phase 1, qualitative data are collected through interviews and focus group discussions with teachers to explore the perception, challenges, and understanding regarding the readiness towards the use of AI in education. Then we have the phase 2. The emerging themes from the qualitative analysis leads to develop a structured questionnaire, and in the second phase, the questionnaire is administered to a large sample of teachers to quantify the test and generalize the initial qualitative findings. Comes the phase 3. Finally, the results from both the phases are integrated during the interpretation to provide a comprehensive understanding of the teacher's readiness towards AI-based teaching. So, explanatory sequential design is very appropriate when the researcher has a very much sufficient time to conduct this three-phase study. This design is useful when the findings from the qualitative sample is needed to test and generalized for a larger quantitative sample. This design is particularly useful for developing measurement instruments as qualitative findings help identify key variables and constructs. Now, developing such quantitative tools from qualitative data must be done very carefully to ensure validity and reliability. And it requires strong methodological expertise in both quantitative and qualitative study. Next comes the fourth is embedded mixed method design. It's also known as nested design. So an embedded mixed method design involves the inclusion of secondary data set, which could be quantitative or which could be qualitative, within a primary research design. The core feature of this design is the design features are very clearly hierarchy in nature. One method will play the primary role while the other play the secondary role, providing the secondary supporting information. Then the embedded data may be collected concurrently or sequentially within the dominant design depending on the research objective. The integration occurs during the data analysis or interpretation stage, where findings from the embedded method are used to support or clarify the main results. Now, this could be of two types. One, it could be quantitative dominant embedded design, where quantitative methods form the core of the study while qualitative data are embedded to explain, interpret, or contextualize numerical results. For example, interviews within an experiment. The second is qualitative dominant embedded design. Qualitative inquiry is primary here, and quantitative data are embedded to support the themes, provide descriptive statistics, and add precision to the interpretations. An example could be, let's say, in an experimental study evaluating a new teaching strategy, the students' test scores are analyzed quantitatively as a primary data, and in the same time, short interviews or classroom observations are embedded to understand students' learning experience in the classroom. There are other mixed method designs as well. Another is multiphase mixed method design. This design consists of multiple interconnected studies conducted over an extended period where quantitative and qualitative methods are used in different phases. Each phase builds upon the findings of the previous one, allowing for comprehensive and longitudinal understanding of the complex issues. This design is widely used in policy research, program evaluation, or a large-scale funded projects. While it offers strong validity and depth, it is resource-intensive, time-consuming, and requires strong coordination and planning. For example, let's say there is a national education reform study which begins with qualitative interview with the policymakers and the teachers, followed by a quantitative survey across the schools, followed by a qualitative case studies of selected schools. Next comes transformative mixed method design. This type of design integrates quantitative and qualitative approaches within a specific theoretical framework, such as feminism, critical theory, and social justice perspectives. The primary goal of this design is just not merely about gaining knowledge, it is also about promoting some kind of social change. The data collection and interpretation are guided by the transformative lens throughout the study. Let me share one example. Let's say a study on girls' access to education in rural areas uses quantitative data on enrollment rates and qualitative interviews with the girls and the parents to understand the cultural barriers, and all these are framed within the gender equity perspective. Now let me share some multiple choice questions to all of you. Let's say there is a question says mixed methods research primarily involves number 1 using only qualitative techniques, number 2 using only quantitative techniques, number 3 combining qualitative and quantitative approaches, number D using experimental methods only. To answer, the answer will be C, combining qualitative and quantitative approaches. Another question, the main purpose of using mixed method research is to A, reduce research time, B, replace qualitative research, C, provide a comprehensive understanding of a research problem, D, avoid statistical analysis. The answer of this would be C, provide a comprehensive understanding of a research problem. Moving on to the rationale for using mixed method research. Now there is a need beyond a single method. Researchers choose mixed methods when either quantitative or qualitative approaches alone are insufficient, especially when both generalizability and in-depth understanding are required. Second is complementarity. The quantitative method provides breadth and measurable trends, while qualitative method explain underlying process, meaning, and mechanism. Third, triangulation. Using multiple methods allows cross-validation of findings, reducing biasness and increasing the credibility. The fourth is methodological development. Findings from one method can inform the design and refinement of the other. Now let's talk about the sampling in mixed method research. The sampling in mixed method research refers to how participants are selected for the quantitative and qualitative phase of the study. Since both the methods are used, so we have different sampling approaches. The first could be quantitative sampling, which is also called probability sampling. This method aims at representation and generalization. The participants are selected so that the results are statistically applied to a larger population. The first one is random sampling, where every individual has an equal chance of being selected, reducing the biasness. Second is stratified sampling, where population is divided into subgroups or strata, such as gender, year, or discipline, and random samples are chosen from each of these strata. Third is cluster sampling, where population is divided into clusters. Example, schools, colleges, an entire cluster is then randomly selected. The second is the qualitative sampling, which is also called non-probability sampling. Now, this method focuses on depth, meaning, and experience, and not generalization. It could be purposive sampling, where participants chosen intentionally because they can provide rich information. For example, interviewing students who are actively participating in the project. Then is convenience sampling, where participants are selected based upon their availability. For example, interviewing students who are readily available in the classroom. The third is snowball sampling, where existing participants refers to the other participants because another student might have faced the similar challenges. Now, there are different types of samples in the mixed method research. One, it could be same participants. That means same group of participants in both quantitative and qualitative study is being used. That means surveying the same students and then interviewing them. The second is different participants, where different groups are used for quantitative and qualitative study. For example, studying 300 students and interviewing 20 different students. The third is nested sample, which is most commonly used in the mixed method design, where let's say a small qualitative sample is chosen out of the quantitative sample. For example, there are 300 students that are being surveyed, and out of which 15 students are being interviewed. Now, the data collection techniques in the mixed method research, of course, quantitatively and qualitatively. In the quantitative part, it could be questionnaires, tests, rating scales, or experiments. In qualitative way, it could be interviews, focus group discussions, observations, or document analysis. And the different types of quantitative data analysis could be descriptive, inferential, correlation, regression. Types of qualitative data analysis could be thematic analysis, content analysis, or narrative analysis. Let me move on to the integration of data in the mixed method research, which is a core feature of this type. It refers to the intentional linking, combining, and relating quantitative and qualitative data in the research process. And this helps to produce more and stronger, meaningful conclusions. The integration could be done at different stages. Integration could be done at the designing stage. Integration could be done at the data collection stage. Integration could be done at the analysis stage, where both the data are brought together. During the analysis, they are compared, combined, and explained together. The fourth is, of course, the integration can be done in the interpretation stage, where the findings from both the methods are discussed together and draw overall conclusions. Now, there are different types of integration method. One is merging. Quantitative and qualitative data are combined side by side for comparison. They show agreement or contradiction between the data sets. It is used in the convergent parallel design. For example, survey results and interview themes presented at the same table. Second is connecting, where findings from one method are used to inform the next phase. It creates a logical flow between the phases. It is used in the sequential designs, where survey identifies some extreme cases which leads to choosing those participants for interview. Another method is embedding, where one type of data is nested within the other and it adds depth without changing the concept of the main design. It is used in the embedding design. For example, experimental study supported by some interview feedback. Let us have some multiple choice questions here. Question: integration in mixed method research refers to A. Sampling procedure, B. Data collection only, C. Combining qualitative and quantitative findings, D. Ethical approval. The answer is C. Combining qualitative and quantitative findings. The next MCQ: which of the following is an advantage of mixed method research? A. Simplicity, B. Lower cost, C. Triangulation of data, D. Single method focus. The answer is triangulation of data. Let's talk about few advantages of the mixed method research. It enhances the validity and credibility through triangulation. It provides comprehensive understanding as to why and how many and explains real-world complex phenomena. The limitations leads to methodological complexity, time and resource management, integration difficulties, and sampling and rigor issues. As mentioned previously, the application of mixed method research could be in the area of education research, psychology, sociology, health science, and management studies. To conclude, mixed method research intentionally combines quantitative and qualitative methods to address complex research problems, and through these designs such as convergent, sequential, embedded, or multiphase, it supports triangulation, complementarity, and methodological development and expansion of findings. With this, I conclude the session. Thank you.